Hi, welcome to DCP Talks. You know, I always feature my podcast and get all the events and everything for its information on my website, www.authorstephencandace.com. You know, I've written a lot of books, like I tell you every week. You know, I've written over 40 books, and with over 20 of those books being on Audible. So check that shit out. Now, you can even buy any of those books on Audible. You can also get any one of my books off of my website. It will direct you right to the source. There you go. You know, like everybody else, I got to get my shit out there. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Now there's a new one, Threads. Holla, let's get it going, people. So if you see me, guess what? It's only because I need to get noticed. There you go. Now, we will discuss two books this week in episode number 10. We will discuss two books this week, and we would break those two books down, and we will make sure that everybody knows what they are and what the books are about. Now, the first two books, okay, these 2 weeks' books, you like that, didn't you? It was all crazy. This 2 weeks' books are Steamy Waters Campground, and that is on Audible, done by Kelly McDowd. The second book is Bullhead, Son of Big Head, and that is also on Audible by Art Graza. There you go. Okay, our first book is Steamy Waters Campground. Let's break this book down. Steamy Waters Campground is about a couple, Mindy and Mike, and Mindy is going to go home to visit her father. Now, Mindy and Mike have also, just for the knowledge, have been in 3 other books. That's right, they made appearances in and out, but they've made appearances in 3 books. Now, Kelly gets a phone call from her daddy. Kelly's going to go home to visit her daddy. Her daddy owns the campground, Steamy Waters Campground. Now, therefore, Steamy Waters is in the wilderness, and there are wild animals, bears and wolves. Well, it turns out this campground is in the middle of a territorial dispute. And as you know, wolves and bears do not like each other. But when it comes to the food source, they ain't fucking around. They hungry, they gonna eat, they gonna dominate, and that's it. You know, this reminds me of a story because, see, my family and I, with my first marriage, used to camp everywhere in Florida. We have been camping all around Florida for years. And then when I moved to North Carolina, we went in the Appalachian Mountains and we were camping there. One night, actually, we were camping, and my son and my daughter, we went out with the flashlight so I could play like a Daniel Boone shit and show them that I ain't afraid of nothing in the woods at nighttime. We go walking through the woods, and next thing you know, there was an animal in front of us, and it looked like a large coon. So I stood there, which is a raccoon, by the way. So we stood there, and I'm looking at it with the flashlight, and then next thing I know, the animal went from the ground straight up into a tree. Now, I don't know about you, but I about shit my drawers right then and there, and I couldn't show fear to my kids screaming and running because, man, they would have just been the fear of God. So I kept the flashlights on its eyes, and then I asked my kids to please just back up really slow and walk back to the car and tell Mom to get into the car with their sister, Ashley. Well, by the time I turned around and walked back slowly, and then I turned and ran at the very end, got in the car, we packed up, and we left. That was the last time for me for camping in that woods right there, because they realized that the Appalachian woods ain't nothing to mess with. You got a lot of wild animals out there. So to me, I don't know what it was, but it put the fear of God into me. So that's about Steamy Waters Campground's a territorial dispute. It turns into a battle between wolves, bears, and the people who are at Steamy Waters Campground. So there you go. That's a breakdown about it. Now, we will break down more into it as we get going, okay? Because we're going to talk about the couple, Mike and Mindy, that went to her daddy's place, all right? Now, let's get to book number 2, Bullhead, Son of Big Head. I know that sounds funny, but it's just what it was, right? Fantasy writing. You got to love that shit. It's about a small town in Beamer Falls. Something around the lake there starts to be a menace, let's just say. All of a sudden, there are a cat missing. Then there may be a dog, maybe a kid. Well, this book turns into where there is no remorse for anybody. There is no swaying. We don't have pity on children. We don't have pity on animals, and we don't definitely have pity on adults. In this book, everybody is a source of food for Bullhead. It is a big black gator that turns into the menacing waters and through Beamer Falls. So it's about that little town having to deal with Bullhead. Okay, so there you go. Now, in both of these books, we can still break down the why factors. Okay, now Mindy and Mike go home to visit her daddy. Now, she talks to him, but then when they get there, can't find daddy. So what the hell, where is daddy? Now, the why factor is, when you go somewhere and you don't understand something, why do you stand there pondering that maybe it's still a good idea? Because it's usually not. If you go somewhere and then all of a sudden you can't find somebody, something's wrong. If the house back door is left open and then there's equipment around, well, where are they? Something's wrong somewhere. So the why factor would be, why aren't you breaking that shit down, right? Now, in Bullhead, okay, let's break down a little bit of the why factor with Bullhead. See, in Bullhead now, you're talking about a town that didn't take precautions. Animals start missing, people start missing, and you do not take precaution. Like, what are you thinking? I don't know about you, but so let's wait until people are dead. It's the same thing with the old movies, Jaws, if you remember that movie, let's just wait. Nope, everything is fine. Nope. And then the more people die. But yet, why do people feel that it's okay to lose one for the many? No. I say we lose none for the many, and then if you have to lose one, then we try to make it where it's as little bit of a one as possible. Maybe a leg, maybe an arm, but not the whole person. You know what I mean? Okay, so when do you feel you can manage anything? Like Mike and Mindy get to her father's house, can't find him. They go walking around. They start sniffing around. They start wondering. The phone line is working. I mean, things are still working there. So, they got no cell service. It's that far out in the north or that far out in the country where they don't have a lot of service at times. So therefore, they rely on each other, there is a landline phone at the house, though. People got to remember, if there's a landline phone, it's there for a reason. Now, you should really use it, right? So to me, and then why in Bullhead? Why do the sheriff and the deputy feel they can manage anything? Why aren't they taking precautions from the start? To me, if something happens, you should immediately throw every red flag up, every guard, all hands on deck, protect everything. But no, people feel that, like in these two stories, like, well, let's just wait. Why wait? Every time you wait, something happens. I mean, let's be realistic. Isn't that the way every movie turns out to be? Just when you think nothing's going to happen, it's a boom. I mean, are they going to wait till death or destruction? Like, seriously, people? Come on. And when should you feel the moment of fear? Like, in both stories, they are not directly addressing, to you at first. It's about what they want. In Steamy Water's Campground, like they end up having to go on an ATV, traveling around and having fun. And then that's whenever they realize things are not as it seems. Mindy goes to the farm next door to talk to them. And it didn't go as planned, let's just say. So to me, it's one of those things where, you have to live it to see it. You have to read it to understand it, because when you're talking about animals and their tenaciousness and their viciousness, animals don't care. If they want revenge, they want revenge. And that's all there is to it. There always is an agenda with animals, because animals are sneaky. Even my own dog looks at me sometimes and I really have to think. It's like, man, he looks at me like I'm a dinner. And I'm like, holy shit. So to me, can you really proact something? Yes, which means your instincts. Your instincts will allow you to protect yourself. You got to remember that. Your instincts are everything. Okay, Steamy Waters Campground. You get to her daddy's house. You start walking around as you're going to read. Then next thing you know, you can't find stuff, but then you find little things that make you think. Well, that's when you should react. You should proact like, wait a minute, what happens this? What happens this? Well, let's go looking. Well, let's go here. Let's go there. Well, you know what? And then how about in Bullhead? Somebody starts missing. Shouldn't you take precautions of like, signs out? Shouldn't you say beware? Shouldn't you be on the local radio saying don't go in the water, don't go near the water? No. Why is it always like, oh, it's okay until somebody's dead? So in both cases, fear, shit, you got to feel fear. Anybody who's been afraid of the dark, see, the worst is the dark. When it comes to animals in the dark, I don't know about you, but that put the fear of God in me. If I was in the woods and I was scared of a wolf, see, wolves are so tenacious and scary. They think so far ahead. They trap you before you were even trapped. And alligators and shit do the same thing. They're below the water. You don't see them until all of a sudden they're there. Now, I don't know about you, but have you ever seen a gator jump out of the water? I don't know about you. Now, I have fished in Florida, and let me give a little bit of advice about gators, okay? Gators are not like crocodiles. Gators don't go hunting people. Gators do not sit there and gators relax and chill on the sides. Unless you're near their den, then they'll come towards you. I have driven boats right next to gators, driven boats over gators, and never tried to balk. And if you want to see something funny, we used to make them roll. So as you run, you pull your prop up and then you run over the gator and then it just rolls in the water. It's just not funny, but don't do that. But that was cruelty back when I was young. Now, but when you talk about it, gators don't come out hunting you. So a big gator, which means if you go near it now, hey, any animal is going to get threatened. So you got to remember that. So keep your ass far away and keep your hands in close because they will take those fingers off. I promise you. Which brings us to the fact of why would you go through it? If you see things are start happening, like in Beaver Falls, okay, you got a gator. You got a gator that is a menace, and all of a sudden, and two boys finally see the damn gator, how big it is, and then they tell the world, and guess what? Like usual, someone is a disbeliever, and all it can't be until they see it. So to me, it is like you should make sure you protect every little thing possible. Yeah, towards the end, they try to protect everything possible. What happens when people start really being the truth? Steamy Waters Campground. Why did Kelly and Mike go through with it? If you didn't find your daddy and things weren't right, I don't know about you, but my ass wouldn't be staying there. I mean, yep, they went around looking around for him, and that's whenever the disturbances start. But to me, it's one of those things where yeah, you got to really think and proact, react, and then go through with it. I don't know, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Once again, it will bring us to that one little really silly word called a regret. Do you think both of them regretted it, after they went there? As you'll find out in the story, maybe they have. But there's no regret. See, Mike and Mindy been in 3 other stories. They had no regrets. They did what they were supposed to do. And in those stories, they were not, they were interesting folks. Let's just put it to you that way. So to them, they don't have too much regret. They don't have too much fear either, by the way. So they ain't afraid to put up a fight. I'll just say it that way. So to me, that's why. And then you're talking about Bullhead. The people who didn't know was because the town didn't warn them. That's the people who were, victims who fell short of a life because of the town. Did not warn them, did not take precautions. So how can the town regret something? But they always do that. You see them up in the front, same as whenever we had COVID. You see people standing there saying, well, we regret and we are sorry to tell you, all of this stuff. Well, you know what? No, you don't regret it. You made a decision. You stuck with it. You knew what the consequences would be. And trust me, whenever government sits in a room, because I've been in companies and I sat in boardrooms, we discuss everything. We discuss the outcomes of the bad, the good, and the ugly. We always do. You always have to give the worst case scenario. You have to give the next. The government knew what was going to happen. Even right now, bringing in all these freaking immigrants. The government knows what's going to go down. They don't plan for it because they know they just let it ride and fall where it may, which is wrong. So to me, that's just how that works. But to me, which then brings us to the same old consequences. The issue is that everybody understands consequences for their actions, right? I mean, really think about it, right? Whether you're right or wrong, whether you still have the right choices to make there, you did it or not, but therefore the consequences for afterwards of making that decision, right? I mean, in Steamy Waters Campground, think about it. Mike and Mindy are out there looking for dad, but they're also ready to defend that property if they have to. I mean, hey, it's daddy's property. I'm sure he fucking held up. Why is it too we always see signs, no trespassing on somebody's property? Will they really shoot you? I don't know, but I wouldn't want to be one to find out. But it's true though, right? You see a lot of no trespassing signs. Back in the day, they would shoot you first and worry about you second. I mean, I don't blame them though when you think about it, right? Now, in Steamy Waters Campground, where did that come from? Why did I write that? I used to camp a lot. My kids will contest that. Man, we went every weekend. Their kid's mother, we went a lot of camping. Me and her used to camp everywhere. For years, we would camp everywhere. We liked to travel. We used to go to different forts. I know, different Civil War forts, Revolutionary forts, all through this south of the United States, around the eastern border. So we've been to many forts. Yeah, I know my kids talk about this day. They hated it, but I loved it. And I took them to it, and I don't give a gosh goddamn. But we went to many forts, a lot of camping. So Steamy Waters Campground kind of hit home about that story about the cougar or lynx or whatever that jumped up in the tree. That's all I know is it scared the shit out of me, and that was good enough for me. Now, Bullhead. Now, why did I write Bullhead? I've always liked gator stories. I've always liked the fact that they're very sneaky. I like the way the crocodiles in Africa are just brutal. Like, they're brutal, man. I love it when they show them just being so calm and quiet. Next thing you know, bam! They come out jumping like a God-blessed fucking hurricane, and they're coming to fucking... they can run fast, too. They can run almost 40 miles an hour. And I don't know about you, but shit, a human can. They're fucking, whoa, you better run. You better learn to run real quick because gators catch you. Crocodiles, that is. But you know what I mean? It's one of those things where, why did I write this? Because I love that. I love the fact of the spookiness. I like the fact of a good story. Lake Placid was one of my, Betty White was just amazing in that movie. And I loved that. I thought it was a great movie. Way far-fetched, but way worth it. So it was pretty good, right? Now, both stories you can relate to a movie that I really liked, okay? Amityville Horror. And the reason why I'm saying that, if you haven't seen it, it's a definite must, right? In Amityville Horror, you never see the deaths. You never see. It is the mind twists and turns that emotionally really mess you up with the unexpected of paranormal. And I say it's the same thing with Bullhead and the same thing with Sleepy Waters. Nobody likes the night. Nobody hates the creepiness and the feeling of eeriness that the goosebumps or the hair rises up on the back of your neck. Seriously? We all know that shit. So to me, that's what it's about. It's about you must have faith when it comes to fear. You must believe, even though all the odds may be stacked against you. You must make choices, and good choices about that. A little support helps in confidence. I get it, But when you talk about the Lutz family, they had a hell of a source time in Amityville. And like I said, it was no bloody, gory, Nightmare on Elm Street, Jason. It was more mind-bending, twisting, which I find was a lot better. You know, in both of these stories, you will love these characters. These characters are really cool. You're going to love Mike and Mindy and Steamy Waters Campground. Uh, and then you'll love Deputy. You'll love Old Man Siemens and Bullhead. There's a lot of good little stories in here. A lot of good characters. And the characters that will draw you in wondering what happened to them and you want to keep reading. Now, the good thing is Bullhead is actually a short book. Steamy Waters Campground is also a short book. These are books that when I was writing a few years ago where, you know, I just started really getting into writing. So uh, anybody would tell you about writers. It can be very difficult at first because it's hard to bring up things, hard to make up a story, you know, without cheating and putting another movie into it or something. No, it's hard. So it takes years of practice and guidance to really open up your mind to where now I can write a 300-page book and it's nothing. The first 100 pages are just talking about the story getting started. And it took me years to get there. Like Bullhead was one of my first books I ever wrote. It's barely over 100 pages. But it's like The Running Man. You know, The Running Man new movie out. You know, that's one of a few stories in the Bachman books, and it's not even like 40 pages. It's ridiculous. It shows you how you can make a small story into a big movie. That's all there is to it. And they had that movie years ago with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Damn good movie. But you got to really realize that it's one of those things where, you know, it is what it is. And that's why those stories came so good. Those characters, you're going to love them. Now, you can always share your inputted thoughts to me at authorstephencandace@gmail.com. All right, we have 2 recipes of the week this week. And this week, the 2 recipes are going to be grilled chicken breast and homemade macaroni and cheese. Yum the frick yum. Now, chicken breast. You're going to need 2 chicken breasts or 1 breast for each person that you plan on cooking, okay? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to baste your chicken breast in oil, and then you're going to sprinkle on your spices. I use garlic, paprika, salt, and pepper. And then what I do is I go, and if I'm going to cook it on the Barbie, and then I turn around and open the barbecue, I get the grill hot, and then I oil down the barbecue grates. And then you always, with the chicken breast, there is a skin side and a meat side. The skin side is a shiny side. So you're going to take that shiny side and put that down first. Because if you go on the other side first, if you wonder why chicken sticks to the grates and you pull off a bunch of little meat, it's because you put the meat side down first. You want to cook on the skin side down first, about 2 minutes, about 2 to 4 minutes each side, until the internal temperature, if you have a thermometer, is 165 or it's clear. There's no liquid coming out. If you cook it in the oven, it's very simple. Put your oven on 350. Put down some foil parchment paper. Oil it down once again. Place it skin side down. Cook it for about 10-15 minutes on one side. Flip it over about 10-15 minutes. Check the internal temperature. And then your choice of sides. Okay? So if you're trying to be healthy on a diet, rice is really good with the side of chicken, same as some greens or a salad. Know your blood type. If you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to do the thing, know the blood type, because your blood type means a lot of when it comes to food source. All right? Now, recipe number 2, macaroni and cheese. Yeah, this is not a store-bought macaroni and cheese. This is a real store-bought mac and cheese. You're going to cook elbow noodles until they are done. Get them cooled off. You want 2 cups of elbow noodles. Or basically, with macaroni and cheese, a smaller noodle, but any kind of noodle works. I promise you, it does work. But elbow noodles work the best. Now you're going to cool them down. Now what you're going to do in a saucepan, you're going to take a 1/2 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, a 1/4 cup of cheddar cheese, and then a 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. And then you're going to add some salt and pepper and then a pinch of cayenne pepper. You're going to put that on low on the stove and then stir it until it melts all the way through and makes a nice thick sauce. Now you're going to take your macaroni And you're going to put that into a little shallow baking dish. You're going to pour your cheese sauce over your macaroni, stir it up really good. Some people use little breadcrumbs to put on top. Put that oven on 350. You want to cook it for about 30 minutes. And boy, serve it when it is good and hot. This week's things that make you go, What happened to regular commercials? You know, when you seen commercials years ago, they wouldn't show any kind of feminine products. They didn't really show too many bras or panties, or they didn't show the new pushing powder for men to stay hard, women, doing all this. And then now there's a commercial where they show a man, right? Because instead of wearing the pants, he's wearing a pee pad, right? And then, and it's funny because out of all the commercials that they show, women and products, and nowadays they show everything, the one thing that my wife says is, why does he wear that as underwear? Now, I don't know about you, but that just made me go, So my wife looks at me and she says, she goes, he's wearing a pad in his underwear. I said, yes, because nowadays, what is the big deal? I see all kinds of women showing all kinds of stuff nowadays. It's not like you did. They got pads, they got tampons for years of what sizes and how is your flow and how is this. But yet a man puts one thing out there and all of a sudden, men have issues too. Just saying. Okay, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Just remember that. Trooper, go for it, baby. This week's older shit. Now let's talk about life is like a roller coaster. There's many ups and downs, laughter and tears. And sometimes, if you have really good time, you may pee yourself a little. It's true, but it's fun. Don't forget about how many ads we see about Depends, about pads, and then not to mention knowing where the bathrooms are everywhere you go. There's not a senior out there that don't go shopping that don't know where the bathrooms are. They're not going anywhere to say, oh, is there a bathroom there? No. And the funny thing about getting older too, I had an Aunt R, she was 86, okay? And we were all talking about when I visited my Aunt Julia, which was her older sister, and she was 90. And Aunt Julia was telling us about the crimes that were happening at the park around the corner, and about the women being harassed and molested and stuff like that. And my Aunt R, all of a sudden, she, it turns out, after we're talking and then after dinner, she gets up and she's going out the front door. And my aunt's like, where are you going? And I'm like, where are you going? It's dark out. She says, I'm going to the park. It's been 15 years since anybody made a pass at me. I about fell off my stool. I laughed so hard when she said that. And I giggled and I couldn't stop. And it was just funny to me that she still had that quick thinking. And this was the same aunt that was 86, sitting in the back seat of a car. And I'm driving them to go shopping. And she puts her foot tickling with her toe my other aunt's ear. Now, I don't know about you, but these are old women. I laughed. I couldn't believe. Then they played hide and seek on my ass at the store. They took off on me and I searched around the store. That is great memories. It's a great fond memory. It made me chuckle about seniors, about they still want to have fun. And it just made me laugh. Now we have this week's quote of the week. This week's quote of the week is, your only limit is you. I want you to think about it. Your only limit is you. Now let's enjoy our lives and enjoy everything around us, relax and have a good time and grab a book. I hope it's one of mine. Now I want to congratulate Kiwi Productions. This week they are going into the Festival 48-Hour Film Fest for the world and the competition. Good luck. I hope we're going to do well. There you go. Now we will chat at you soon. Holla. I want to say hi to my peeps out there, and my Christmas edition will be with my friends. We're going to have an open edition. So there you go. Have a great week. We will talk to you soon. And our next adventure, DCP Talks, is out. Holla!